Hi, so for today's video, we are going to have a review of the derivative. First, let us recall the following notations for the derivative of a function, say y equal to f of x. We have the following. Let's have our laser pointer. We have y prime. We also have, aside from y prime, we have dy over dx. We also have f prime of x. That is given y equal to f of x. And then we have the capital D, and then we have y and x. This is read as derivative of y with respect to x. This assumes that x is our independent variable and y is the function with respect to x, or function of x. In general, given y equal to cx to the n, where c is a constant coefficient and then n is the exponent, again we have a y being a function of x here, we have y prime, or the derivative dy over dx, equal to cn, meaning we just have to multiply this constant coefficient by the exponent, and then we copy the base, but this time we are going to subtract 1 from the exponent. Okay, so that will be our formula. Take note of that. So as an illustration, say given with 3x squared, where 3 is our c and our n is equal to 2. So for the y prime, we're going to multiply 3 by 2. So we have a 6. Subtract 1 from 2, we have 1. So 2 minus 1 is 1. That's why the new exponent is 1, which we don't need to write here anymore. Okay, so y prime is just 6x. Okay, again, it came from 3 times 2, 6, and then the new exponent is 1 less than the old exponent. So y prime is 6x. That can also be written as dy over dx, or f prime of x. The process of getting the derivative is actually called differentiation. So we don't say derive, we say differentiate. So let's have some shortcuts. Let me share with you some shortcuts. Suppose we're given with cx, constant times x. Okay, so for the y prime, if we are going to follow this formula, we are going to multiply c by the exponent. In this case, the understood exponent is 1. So what we have is c times 1, and then subtract 1 from the exponent. So that will be 0. But then we remember x to the 0 is just equal to 1. So what we have is c times 1 times 1, which is just equal to c, meaning if we were to get the derivative of this term, all we have to do is just pick up that constant coefficient. So for example, if we're given with 18x, yan, kamukha lang siya ng cx, di ba? So it's like picking up the constant coefficient. All we have to do is pick that up. So 18, that will just be the derivative. So y prime will just be 18. So kung 100x yan, y prime will be 100. Okay. What about if we're given with just a constant? What's the derivative of that? So we take note that constant, pwede natin sabihin constant times 1. Diba? So ang 1 natin, as we said here, can be written as x to the 0. Okay? Para mas maging obvious lang yung may x na base. Sabi natin, sa rule natin, we have to multiply the constant by the exponent. So it will be equal to c times 0. And then subtract 1 from the exponent. That will be x to the negative 1. But then this will not matter so much kasi we have a factor which is 0. Every time we have a factor that is 0, that will automatically be 0. So that goes to say, moral of the story, if we have a constant, it's like 5,000. Ano ang derivative nito? 0. Maski 5 million pa siya, 0 lang yung derivative niya. Okay? So, ayun, basta constant, derivative is 0. What about if you have x to the n? Understood coefficient here is 1. So, all we have to do is multiply 1 by n. So, meron kang n. Parang binring down mo lang yung exponent na n. And then, simply subtract 1 from the exponent. So, that will become n, x to the n minus 1. So, if we have x to the 10, that will be just 10. Baba lang si 10, and then x to the 9. Okay? Binababa mo lang yung exponent. So, let's have our basic derivative rules. Ito yung mga pinag-aralan natin ng ating differential calculus. Ayan, so let's have an example of sum and difference rule for differentiation. Ayan, so dun sa formula sheet natin, this is actually f of x, this is g of x, but I prefer calling it u and v, where u and v are functions of x. So pwedeng f of x to, pwedeng g of x, just like in our formula. Okay? So, sabi natin, pagka nag-differentiate tayo ng sum or difference, separated by plus or minus, all we have to do is differentiate the individual terms. So, that will just be u prime plus or minus v prime. Or kung naging f of x to, this is g of x, that will just be f prime of x, g prime of x. Take note na yung y natin a while ago just became y prime. Ayun, if take note of that formula, derivative of a sum or difference is equal to the sum or difference of their derivatives. For example, if you have this, for the y prime, it's just differentiating this term by term. So this becomes 12x squared minus this becomes 6x. And then we just have to pick up the constant. So plus 2, where the constant derivative is 0. So we don't need to write it anymore. So that's it. The derivative of the given cubic function is 12x squared minus 6x plus 2. For the product rule, say we have u times v, where u and v are functions of x. So, pwedeng f of x to, pwedeng g of x to. Okay, f of x times g of x. So, for the product rule, remember the derivative of a product is a sum. Okay, derivative of a product is a sum. So, parang ginawa natin dito yung function na to o yung factor na to, pinatner or pinair dun sa derivative nung kasama niyang factor. Okay? So, you have u times v prime, tapos yung kabilang term mo naman, siya naman yung other factor, ipipair siya or ipapartner dun sa derivative nung kasama niyang factor. Okay? So, that would be v times u prime. Tapos yung sum nila, yun yung derivative nung product, nung original product that's given. Okay? So, dun sa given sa atin, this is f of x times g prime of x plus g of x times f prime of x. Okay? We take note of this formula. And once again, the derivative of a product is not equal to the product of their derivatives. For example, if we're given with this one, this is a product. So, pinaka-shortcut na matuturo ko sa is get the individual derivatives first. So, for this one, this will be just 2 plus 0. So, derivative of this will be just be 2. So, pero yun, kunin muna natin siya. And then, differentiate this one. What's the derivative of 5x squared minus 1? This will be 10x. No? So, derivative of this is 10x. It will take care of the first term. Sabi natin, plus. Ito naman yung kukopyahin natin. Yan, copy that. And then differentiate this one. No? So, derivative of this, as I mentioned, is just 2 plus 0 or simply 2. We can simplify this by multiplying and then add. No? So, 20x squared plus 30x plus 10x squared minus 2. We can actually combine the 20x squared and the 10x squared. So, it will be 30x squared plus 30x minus 2. Okay? So, that's it. The derivative we got is this one. Suppose we want to multiply it first. We don't want to apply the product rule. So, we use the FOIL method, yan, or the distributive property. So, multiply muna natin. Ayaw natin gumamit kunwari ng product rule. So, we can afford to do that with this example. So, we have 10x cubed plus 15x squared minus 2x minus 3. And then, we are going to differentiate this individually. So, ayun, 10 times 3. Parang ano lang, imumultiply natin, tapos subtract 1 from the exponent. Remember, multiplication and subtraction, ang steps natin pag nag-differentiate. So, 30x, then pick up the coefficient, that's minus 2, minus 0. So, take note, this is exactly the same as this one. So, no matter what our strategy is, whether we treat that as a product or as a sum, we get the same answer. For the quotient rule, remember we have this one, This is f of x over g of x. The derivative of a quotient is also a quotient, but it's not u prime over b prime. Okay? It's not as simple as that. Okay? So, ang kanyang numerator will be the denominator times the derivative. Parang pinair mo rin siya dun sa kasama niyang derivative, no? Kasamahan niya. So, yung denominator, pair mo sa derivative ng numerator. Tapos, yung numerator, ipair mo sa derivative ni denominator. So, yun yung dalawang products natin, products. Pero take note in this case, we have to be careful kasi subtraction yung operation natin and that is not commutative. Okay? Ayun, so remember to get the v u prime first minus ub prime. Bago yung minus ub prime, all over the square of the denominator. Okay? So, ayun, we take note of that formula. And again, the derivative of a quotient is not equal to the quotient of their derivatives. So, for example, if we have this, that is u prime equals 2. Derivative ng u natin, u prime equals siya sa 2 para madali nang kunin yung derivative natin later. Yung v prime natin, what's the derivative of this? This will be 10x. Ayun, 10x minus 0. If we follow this formula, ang gagawin natin, unahin natin yung denominator. Unahin yung nasa denominator. Okay? So, you have your y prime equal to, yan. Nakamadali actually yung v squared kasi square mo lang yung denominator. Yan. So, square lang natin siya. Ayun siya. Tapos yung numerator natin, what do we have for bu prime? It's like this times u prime. Ayan. So, parang kang nagko-cross multiply. So, 5x squared minus 1 times 2. Yan. Pwedeng balik na rin kasi commutative naman ang multiplication. Minus this product. So, that will be minus this, minus 10x times 2x plus 3. Okay? So, if we simplify, this is 10x squared minus 2. And then this one will be minus 20x squared minus 30x. Again, we can simplify this numerator by combining the 10x squared minus 20x squared. So that will be negative 10x squared minus 30x minus 2 all over the square of the binomial 5x squared minus 1. Yan. So now let's have the chain rule for differentiation. The chain rule, ang palatandaan natin dyan, merong function of x na naka-raise sa power. Okay? So, dati x lang yung naka-raise sa power. This time, that is a function of x being raised to a power. Pwedeng x squared plus 1, pwedeng x cubed minus 2, or later on, pwede pa siyang trigonometric function. Okay? Ayan. So, ang formula natin is Cn, the same base raised to n minus 1. Normally, we stop here. Kaya lang, we have another differentiable factor, which is the base here. Kasi it's a function of x, so we come up with u prime. Okay? Ayan, so, yung ating formula, normally we expect 3 factors for that. First, ayan, it's Cn, and then the base, same base, raised to n minus 1, and then bago natin i-differentiate yung base that we just copied. So, ayun, we take note of that formula. Suppose we're given with this is our C, this is our n, and this is our u. This is the function of x we're talking about. Okay? So, what we have for y prime will be Cn. So, it will come from 5 times 2, which is 10. And then we copied the base, but this time we're going to subtract 1 from here. So, that will just be 3x squared plus 5. And then lastly, for the last factor, we need this one. So, ayun, we need to differentiate what we have just copied for our base. So, what's the derivative? 3 times 2 is 6x, or 6x plus 0. Okay? Ayun, we can further simplify this by writing the derivative as 180x cubed plus 300x. By the way, notice the following observations. When we got the derivative of this function, we used the chain rule a while ago. That's why we were able to get 180x cubed plus 300x after we simplified our answer. But notice that we can also expand this. We can actually square this binomial. So what we can do is write this as this one. Let us have our pointer. we can actually write this binomial squared as 9x to the fourth, the square of the first term, plus twice the product, that will give us 30x squared, and then plus the square of the second term, which is plus 25. Okay, and then we can actually distribute or differentiate this as a product. So, pag differentiate natin to as a product, that means we need to pair this 5 with the derivative of that one and vice versa. So, ano yung derivative ba ng 5? 0. Ano yung derivative nitong factor na to? Itong tatlong terms na to. We have to individually differentiate this. So, we have 36. This is 36x cubed plus 60x plus 0. Okay? Tapos para lang tayong magko-cross multiply kasi we're pairing 5 with that 1 and we're pairing 0 with that 1. Although pwede nating sabi ng isang rule, ilabas muna si 5 tapos i-differentiate yung the rest of the function. Okay? So ayun, minultiply natin, di ba? Yun yung 5 times the derivative of the other factor. We have use the product rule. So 5 times 36x cubed plus 60x, multiply 5 by that one. Kasi magiging 0 na yung other pair, di ba? 0 na yung product nito. Okay? Kaya parang 5 nilabas mo lang times the derivative of the remaining factor. Okay? So, upon multiplication, what we get is, ayun, kaya 0 na. Multiply, we have 180x cubed plus 300x, which is the same as the answer we got using the chain rule. Eh, kunwari ayaw mo namang mag-product rule. So, gusto mo yung parang sum and difference lang. So, multiply natin to. Yan. So, 5 times 9 is 45. X to the fourth. Next is 150x squared. And then last term will be 125. If we are to differentiate this term by term, kasi separated na siya ng plus, 45 times 4 is 180. 180x cubed. Ayan. Tapos 150 times 2 is 300x plus 0. Ayan. So, that means whether we make use of the chain rule, product rule, or sum and difference rule, we get the same answer. So, that's it. Thank you very much for listening. Till our next exam.